Yeah, you can hang on in the Discord chat, so you still have your voice.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Do you have any? You are not a vanilla player. Do anybody of you have a bag saved with the army list that they are using that uses Fireteams?
Oh yes, yeah, I will upload one.
Okay, so you can choose a color like red or blue and like load them up like here. Maybe choose a blue color so that we have something to. Okay, it also works. Yeah. So what we are trying to talk about right now, what we will try to talk about is basically positioning of the link, because I think that's the thing that you can improve the most if you like understand certain basics. So pick up your link, guys. Which they are, and please deploy them on this site somewhere. Like don't fret about it. Like just like in the position that you would like the link to be deployed. Like look a bit about the arrows, like the lines, and like think about what you want them. And I will deploy also a link on the other side, just quite quickly and quite like dirty, without spending too much time.
It's Shanzi and Haidao and Jansh's link.
Just using some sort of stuff I have saved, like from my actual games I'm using, because even for I've been playing so much Baram that it's almost exclusively everything I had. But they're good, but I got actually pretty tired with them already. Yes, if you can help us a bit. Links and coordination, I think. Thank you. Okay, so I have deployed some guys on one side and some of the other. Like like they are not like in the perfect positions, maybe just some pros, but they are following like some pattern I had. Like I had some thinking about this before. Okay, so what do you have?
second. I have a hideout sniper who is
Mhm.
this fire lane. I have
Mhm.
Shanti APHMG who is overwatching this lane.
Mhm.
And I have two hackers here who are prone behind out of line of sight. And I have a paramedic who is a leader just linking these guys.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
well, okay.
Okay. So they are. Okay. So this is just a basic link deployment. But for the first question is, do you know if you are going first or second?
Well, that depends, of course. Well, in this case, I guess I'm deploying as if I'm going second to have some
Yes.
defense.
Okay. So things to consider is look at the board and see if there are any saturation zones. So some tables they will have saturation zones. Now this table, the forest is at the saturation zone, which means your link power is greatly diminished. So they will only arrow with burst 1 instead of burst 2. But let's disregard this. Like this is just a quick of the table. So you deployed both Shanji and MSV overlooking. And the MSV sniper overlooks like this angle. I think there is an angle. Yeah, there is an angle like to this wall and to the left, and it covers the same angle as this Shang-Chi. On the other flank, the Shang-Chi doesn't see much, like this line is blocked up to here, and the sniper sees all the table here. Now let's like disregard this forest and say that this is like just a deployed link. So okay, so the enemy will be able to basically slice the pie, which is just engage one of the guys. And from this flank, if he advances, he will need to engage Shang-Chi first. And this is, of course, your strongest guy, the toughest guy to wounds, etc. But he's also your active piece guy. So if you lose him, this link will not be able to go on the adventure. On the other hand, if this is a purely defensive link, and just judging by the filler you have, like free Zhanshis and Haidao, this Shang-Chi is a very good piece to hold this flank. Like the ranges to look for up to 32. I think he is a bit too far off because like you can engage him from this this crate out of his good range. So
Yeah.
so he is looking at a bit too much of a table. So I think like his lines should be a bit tighter. Now, I know that I told you like not to like fret over deployment, and that's part of it because then you will just spend some time like tuck him in to make him like overlook like this corner of this gate, and that's about it. But then if you do so, this will allow the enemy to like leave from this side of the gate and approach through here pretty much unopposed. So there are some risks and gains, but for the most part, the guys that you leave for aero, at some point they will die. So this is the mindset you need to have about them. They might be the best of the guys. They might have all the mods, the link mods like mimetism and MSV, and you might have a smoke there. But you have to like expect that those guys, somebody would be able to engage them in such a way that they will die. Now, what about your other guys? I would say that your facings for a displacing fire team are all too homogeneous. By that I mean that okay, you have hackers and you have sixth sense, but say if you have such a guy that enters, say here, which should be out of zone of control to everybody and should be behind them. He will not be seen by anybody. And if he's not seen, then he cannot be targeted and he's out of zone of control to anybody. So how to remedy this? First, this Shang-Chi doesn't need to look this direction because this building blocks. So the angle he should have is not like this, but it should be like this, because he will not look at this part in any form. Second, this guy is already prone. He can be seen from here, so I understand the concern. This guy is very close to the edge of the table. He couldn't be deployed even a bit further, still being covered, like trying not to be seen from here. And he should not be at an angle, but he should be parallel to the table, which allows his front of the base to always see the guys that will deploy on the back of your guy. So this is like a 15-degree modification. Now this guy is interesting because he is also deployed watching the front, but this guy blocks most of his way. So I would deploy him all the way to the back and maybe tuck him in here a bit more. Now this makes him vulnerable to like a template through here, but he would be vulnerable to this anyways. And this allows him to actually take shots as this guy arrives here. Now this guy can also be slightly, oh, he's a bit problematic because he can actually see like this angle. So provided you will deploy some other guys here, then he could be looking at this angle, but I think that would be just too many, because right now with those few changes, this spot is off the limits for deployment. And this spot is off the limits because he is overlooked by this guy and this guy. While this guy is a bit of a weak spot for the link team, for most of the approaches, the Shang-Chi will still be the first target, so he's the strongest in your team. Another thing to look for is range bands. So this guy can see a very long range band here, but is it really like the best range band? Can he see through here? Yes, he can see like all the way through here. But if somebody walks through here and reaches to this corner, he can engage him in a good HMG range, which is not a end of the world. You are still, oh, okay, it's even Spitfire range. That's a bit more of a problem because there are plenty of like good Spitfire platforms. But you don't want him to be engaged like without line of fire from within 16 inches. So I think this is an okay spot for him. Like he could be a bit further back, but this is still a good spot. Like I would prefer to have him, I think, like slightly back. Like disregarding like the flanks, the buildings, etc. So that was facings, like purely defensive. Another thing to consider is line of fire blockers. So like this building blocks huge chunk of view from all your guys, like on this side. So if anything approaches through this side, of course, your sniper would protect like this line, but he will not protect this line from the deployment zone, or models deploying, say, airborne deployment. Of course, you can have other guys that will overlap this area, but we are talking just one link. So you have like airborne deployment here. He can pretty much run at you and engage your soft guys in a chain rifle range in just one order. If he runs to this corner, you can just move like 4 inches to here, and that should be already like almost like chain rifle range for them both. So yeah, so this flank is a bit weaker. How can you remedy that? You can move the link to one of the flanks. So you can either move the link to this flank or to this flank. This is worse, of course, because there is lots of like short ranges over there. And by doing so, you are basically putting like a guy watching your back, and then all of the other guys are like watching their lanes. I'm not saying like on this map this is a good spot for deploying the link, because I don't think it is amazing. But say if the sniper will be maybe here, and the Shang-Chi, I don't know, yeah, this is quite a good spot for him. And then the rest of the guys here, then you are exposing for the attack just the Shang-Chi and the sniper, and the rest of the guys are tucked in back, maybe one here. So in order to engage him, you would need to first engage other guys. Maybe not Shang-Chi. No, that's a bad spot. Here is better. So what about offensive links? If you were to deploy offensively, how would you deploy it? Like, does this link ever wants to go on the offensive? What do you think?
Yes, I think, well, with HMG, you can go offensive.
Yeah, definitely. Do you want to go with all of them?
Yes, of course. I usually run them as a 5 guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Mm-hmm.
it's in my list just to replace
Mm-hmm.
it some days. So you want me to deploy them offensively, right?
Yes, just show what is the difference between like defensive link and offensive link in deployment. Okay, not to make it awkwardly silent, I will just be talking a bit. So, how do you deploy offensive links? You deploy them as you do behind the cover, so that there's limited line of fire incoming to you, so you can choose where you want to go and engage. And then you want to deploy as many of them prone, preferably everybody, and you want them to be tucked very close to each other. Why? Because then you can change the link leader between them very easily and not mind about being out of coherency. Okay, so this is all right, but I still think you are in a bit of a defensive mind, because right now this hideout is overlooking a thing. So if there is anything here or here, like that is maybe here deployed, or maybe even, I don't know, like here standing, let's say there's a tag here that is like tall, then you still activating the link, you have to make the hideout the link reader to take those face-to-face rolls. And ideally, you don't want to nominate anything that is less burst than your highest burst as the link reader ever if you are attacking, because then you are winning face-to-face rolls. And if you like, of course, with MSV2, with mimetism, with range sort of sniper, there are all considerations for like nominating the link reader. But if you are to be attacking, first consider where the link shines in the range bands. So I would think that this link doesn't really want to be here because it's very close. Maybe he wants to approach this guy from this angle, but this is like already like you are not getting advantage of the range. I would say that this link was to advance through this angle, just because there are like long enfilading fires that you could take, and there is plenty of empty space, which is not good for like advancing, but your link can take care of pretty much everything at those angles or at those ranges. So if you start with removing this guy and then you go and like remove any other guys from here, you will have many more like 16 to 32 inches ranges on this flank than here. You could of course try to move through the front, like through the center, But unless you have to go to the center of the table, like acquisition or like armory or some other mission that requires you to go to the middle. In the middle, you are surrounded. So the flanks are usually your best bet, both for like of course, the terrain and the table will dictate different approaches. But if you are near one flank, then you will always have those long ranges somewhere. And if you are in the middle, then you will always have short ranges everywhere. Which means that this link with a sniper and HMG doesn't really want to go into the middle of the table. Into the middle of the table, you want to walk with a link like this, with like a Spitfire boarding shotguns, so that if you plant them in the middle, they will have 24 inches range to everywhere. Does it make sense?
I see now. Well, I deployed like this because, I placed hideout in this place because I expected when I start moving, somebody can see me from here, and I can just pick him off, and then have some
Okay, so let me show you a small reposition. Remember, you can deploy up to third spot. I do not third line. I will not always like recommend you deploying to the fullest when you are attacking, because then you are like exposing yourself and you still have like all the orders in your turn. But consider like deploying this hideout here and the Shang-Chi here, or maybe here. He's fast, so in the middle is the best. And then those guys here. And maybe this guy here. So this building allows you to descend both like here and here, while being pretty safe from like the other side. So I would maybe consider like deploying some guys like also on the building, just so that you have less targets in one line. Because if you deploy like here, as you deploy, this is a good spot also because there is a cover. But say there is an enemy infiltrator, like and say a boarding shotgun Fidei appears here. And if you activate the link, those guys will suffer the template. And while these guys can take it and survive, the other guys are just a cheap filler. And you have to consider that the enemy might have an infiltrator, even a cheap infiltrator, let's say a Dailami. It can still be a problem. Of course, those cannot deploy into your DZ, but that's also the reason why you don't always want to deploy like on the line, as in say 40k you would. Because let's say this Dailami, if you deployed say here, as you did, and you had those guys here, if I pass a roll on a 7, then this Dailami will be able to target about 2 guys maybe here. If you just deploy them
I've
like
seen
here.
some of my games. Like I put my guys
Yeah.
in front of infiltrators, and they just get shot immediately.
Yes. So what you can do against such a guy is to not activate a link, but have like a free guy somewhere to destroy him. This might be Kokram or Daoing or like Zensha, like from a different angle, so they cannot put a template. If they are attacked from this guy, they cannot put a template possibly like in the other direction. But like more on the link team, like deploying them when you are going first, you want to deploy them in null, which means nobody is seen, because this gives you the best choice of who to engage. Because of course this hideout is here, and as you said, you might want to deploy them to engage somebody here. But if you are going first, most usually you will be deploying first, so you don't know if there is somebody here. Now, if there is somebody here, say a flash pulse bot or a worker or somebody like inconsequential, you can still make this hideout the link leader and engage this target. Like move up here, move back, and move the rest of the guys like this direction. So you are still engaging and removing guys, but you are not forced to take this arrow. And if you deploy him looking on the board, if you are attacking, then you are forcing yourself to take this fight, which might end up poorly. Okay. So how do you now? Okay, the thing is like 5-man link teams. The bonuses seem very strong, and they are very strong. But especially a link team like this, like 2 strong guys and 3 filler troops, they are very vulnerable to those like cheap guys that come at you and like take one of those guys. And even worse if they have like a template weapon. So if this link advances to here and ends the turn there, it makes it much more vulnerable to those guys because they would not need to infiltrate there. If they just survive there, like behind this wall, they are just like the antipodes that we were saying before. Like you are in a threat range. So unless you remove all the opposition, it is usually good to stop pushing with the link at some point and pull back, just retreat to a safer spot. Like you have just created this area between you and your opponent. Now go back and claim it by putting arrows there. So don't push yourself like to here just to be into your enemy's zone, unless of course the mission calls for you to score the zone. But even if, let's say, this is the supremacy table. So let's say you want to score those zones. Don't you approach those zones with the link team? Place the link team in a position that they can defend those zones. So say you can play, sorry, I'm just derping. So let's say you place like the sniper on the first floor here. Not the best spot, but he provides an arrow, and maybe this Shang-Chi here. So they are in the zone. Now this guy, let's say here and like guarding the back, and the other guy like went on the roof so that it's harder to put one chain rifle on them both, and they should be both prone. The link leader most likely should be like inconsequential and hidden so that the link doesn't break. So let's say this guy is here. So I would say this is quite a good position to end the turn with the link. And if you are to be scoring on the table, then use your other pieces, say the Zensha, to put your points there. Because then they are protecting themselves both. The link is protecting strength and the power here, and the Zensha is protecting the link from approaches from different angles, like from here.
I see. Well, I have a question regarding link activation. Can
Mm-hmm.
you measure the distance between link members?
You can measure after you nominate the link leader. So you have to guesstimate. So if you have a link deployed a bit wide, like defensive link, so that they don't want to like all suffer the hits, and say you have this guy as a link leader for a reason, or maybe this guy, and everything is fine, everybody is in the link, but then you want to push with a Shang-Chi. So you nominate the Shang-Chi, and then you have to check coherency. And oops. Yes. And then now the Russians are like arguing about this in a pretty convincing way. But there are two checks for link coherency. One at the start after you nominate the link leader, and the second at the end of the order. And like the Russians are arguing that you can like move the guy, say nominate this guy here, he's still in the link, and then move this guy up, take the action using all the link bonuses, and then you measure the thing, and oops, he was in the formal link. Now, I'm not sure like what is the exact wording and why they are doing it, but like it is a bit counterintuitive.
I can
how
have
can do this.
have a look to check, but my understanding was that because the measurement
You
is
have to check.
explicitly at the start and at the end, you can leave coherency and re-enter coherency. In fact, I'm reasonably sure not servants but synchronized can, I think.
Yeah, like this is definitely legal. Like if you start here, you are in coherency, and then you move 2 inches here to get some angles,
Right.
and then you move back.
Yep.
Then you are completely safe.
Yep.
This is definitely a link team.
Yep.
And you still have those bonuses. But my question is like the Russians are like arguing that they are just forcing this understanding that you can move to here and like retain all the link bonuses, and because like you are checking this bonus at the end, you will still retain it, and only then at the final check this guy will drop out of the link. I am not sure how it works either way.
Rule before, because I thought, well, at the beginning of the turn you check your coherency, you are in coherency,
right,
with all the bonuses.
Right.
Then at the end of the order, but I think it has something to do with, well, the resolution of the order, and
yeah,
well, you have to check the order of this.
Yeah, like I told you already, like I'm pretty lazy when it comes to like checking those rules. Like somebody tells me that, and if we are just both playing the same way, that's fine with me. But I want to just to raise this, that there is some like discussion on the forums right now, and like there are some different opinions about this. So just to be safe, just in case, like you don't want to somebody try just to argue and like make the game unpleasant, come back to the place, just to be safe.
It's an interesting
or just
discussion.
move this guy as part of the link, and then you are still in the green.
Just to let you know, we've done half an hour, just so that you're aware.
Yeah, the guys who are left out of coherency, they just leave the link team, and I need to spend the command token to reform it if I want to include them back, right?
Yes, you can spend as many command tokens as you want on this, unless this is your first turn, your second player, and the first player and the opponent chose to spend the command token to actually stop you from spending more than one. And like if this link for some reason on the active turn breaks, so this guy dies or just goes unconscious, and then say have a paramedic, and this paramedic will say heal him, and he stands up on one wound, he still doesn't join the link automatically. You still have to spend a command token to reform the link. There is one instance where the models would join the link automatically, and it happens at the start of your turn. So this means that you have to survive with the guys still in coherency from the original link leader, because if the link leader is unconscious or like breaks from the link, then the link is gone. Say this happens, say if a guy comes here, or maybe even the rock, where was he? Whatever, something comes here, and you want to change the arrows. So let's say this guy wants to dodge, this guy wants to shoot, this guy wants to shoot. This means that the majority of the link with the link leader, who will also dodge most likely because he's prone, or idle, this means that this guy will drop out of the link. But if you kill this guy and then this guy survive, then this guy will rejoin the link at the start of your turn. If he survive, he can still within zone of control of the original link leader.
I guess anyone who declares arrow different to the link leader leaves the link, right?
Yes, I think that's the way.
I think it's anyone who declares an ARO that's different to what the majority of the link declares.
Yeah,
I
majority.
think.
But like, what happens if you have like the link leader? Like, there should be like, okay, so there is like say a hacker, a paramedic, and
Right.
Zanshi and Haidao, and the link leader is hacker. So okay. So what happens here? Something comes here.
Oh, don't test me, Perzan.
Yeah,
Don't-
just like let's make this actually like a conversation. So this guy, let's say this guy has a chain rifle, whatever, flamer, something. Those guys wants to dodge.
Yeah.
This guy, let's say he's already looking at him. He wants to shoot. This guy wants to shoot,
Mhm.
and this guy wants to hack.
Yeah.
And he's the link leader. What now? I think the link will break.
I think the
completely.
link breaks. I think the link breaks
Yeah,
because the
because
link
the
leader's not
link
doing
leader
the same thing as what
just
the
because-
majority
yeah,
of the
he's-
people are doing.
Yeah. Now, but what happens if, say, you have a guy who has no arrow, and then you have those two guys, and say you have those two guys shooting, those two guys with no arrows, and this guy is dodging or hacking.
I think that's okay because they
So-
can't do it to
So
stop.
they are idling.
Yeah.
So he can remain with them.
Yeah.
But they will break out of the link.
Which ones? Sorry.
If he is hacking.
Yeah.
And they are shooting.
Yeah.
They don't, and they don't have an arrow.
Oh God, I don't know. This is
No, I
this is
think
a shocking lack of
those
knowledge.
three would remain in the link because they are majority.
Yeah.
And those two guys are definitely taking different arrow than the hacker. So that will break those two guys off the link. So sometimes you just don't want to take some arrows. Like this guy could declare an idle and still remain in the link.
You can always just spend a command token to reform a link anyway. You know.
Yes.
Yeah, in this
Command
situation, I think that's your option: is you just burn a command token the next turn.
Right. Right.
Yes. But what if you still want to have like a free man?
Well, tough, I guess.
Yeah. So I think like with the link teams, like the best way to look at them is the 5-man link teams are defensive. Like sometimes, especially like in this my Assassin Baram list, this link team has like so many different guys and everybody has a purpose. I'm really having trouble in some missions to make this link team any smaller to be attacking. But for the most part, I believe like the 5-man link is there to stay in the and provide AROs and provide other battery for you and protect your lieutenant with 6 sense. And the pushing is to be done with like a 3-man link team. And consider this: if you have this good position with this hideout, and you have this hacker, and say the mission has a hacker bonus, and then you have a paramedic, and then you have just this one lieutenant who doesn't really want to move anywhere, or other hacker. Hacker is still okay. So consider this: what if you would forgo the bonuses of +3 for the link team and just attack with those 3 guys as a Harris, just moving out of the coherency, breaking out of the link team. So those 2 guys are remaining in the good spot. So he is safe, like for AROing. This guy is pushing forward because he can. He goes like to the console and then hangs back. this guy is ready to shoot this guy in the back. And what you do is you clear as much stuff as you can with this HMG. Then you can fall back into some semi okay spot, like to protect some other angles. You hide, of course, the paramedic, and then provided you can have like, this is not like a optimal, but I think this is all right. Yeah, so look at this. Look at this position. This guy is prone. This guy just attacked here, and then you spend a command token and make a core. So you didn't move all of your guys. You kept your main ARO piece and like a lieutenant or a hacker safe. Just moved out with the guys that are to kill stuff, to click stuff, and to heal stuff. And then you don't have to fall back all the way then with all your link, because then you are not limited to like moving with all your guys around the hideout. But if you can, like, this is not a good spot for this guy because he can be shot from here. But if this guy, if the Shang-Chi and the sniper are both overlooking this area, this makes it doubly difficult to engage this guy. And like in this position, this hideout is the first guy to be seen from this angle, not this guy. And the first guy to be seen from this angle. So yeah, this is quite a good positioning, I think, for an offensive link.
I mean, first I put them defensively, then during active turn, I turn, well, the core into kind of a Harris, and then when I get to my reactive turn, I just reform the link team in a very defensive position, right?
Right.
Yes, I think that's a good way to play like a 5-man link team. Like, don't always just focus on getting the 5-man link team. Like, it is very good to like win the face-to-face roles against other link teams, but I don't believe you should be engaging head-on into defensively deployed link team especially in bad ranges. Like, if you are engaging like a hideout multi-sniper who has MSV, and what does he have? Okay, he doesn't have mutism. So, but let's say you are engaging the Varuna
The classic
Kamau. Yeah, the infamous Kamau, and you are engaging with Shang-Chi. Okay, maybe you will win face-to-face roles with 5-man link team, but maybe you will just suffer wounds. Maybe you just waste too many orders, because like the mimetism and bad range will just bork the thing out of your dice rolls. So maybe just approach him from a different angle and go around and engage in a beneficial range bands.
Yeah. So sometimes it's worth avoiding those like really strong core link team AROs because it's just not worth it. That's certainly the case with the infamous Kamal. I think it's lesser case for the Hideout, which is still a really, really strong piece, with the MSV and the 2 wounds. Sort of 2 wounds.
Yeah, I'm feeling much more comfortable engaging a model with NWI but no mimetism, because like just on the active turn, just the amount of face-to-face rolls to win against him is but basically the amount of face-to-face rolls to win is sort of the same, because you have to win one more face-to-face roll or like increase one more wound than to the Kamau, but you are suffering like less damage in return. I would say like just +3 or -3 just means like those dice will not be able to hurt you.
Can I just follow up on the ARO thing quite quickly? I did look it up while you were talking, and you do decide a majority fireteam ARO, which is purely based on what the majority of the members do. Anyone that doesn't declare that is automatically kicked out at that point. If there's a draw, so 2 people declare one thing and another 2 members declare a different skill, then you decide what the majority ARO is.
Okay, so what happens if the link leader is kicked out of the link team?
I suppose the link team would break, but I don't know if you get your
that's
burst bonus
also
or
my
not.
assumption. Yeah, so you want to keep the link leader safe.
Yeah.
Also, could you give us some examples of a duo team? Because in our community, everyone just told me that they are purely useless. And
Duo team, like if you have a very good attacking platform and you want to save some points if it has a Harris, or if the platform only has limited linking potential. Say if you are playing sectorial and you have a tag can tow a specialist, that is a good example. Well, tag can still click the button because he can like go out with the pilot. But if you have a remote presence tag, then the pilot is pretty shit at clicking the buttons, unless it's an avatar. But say if you have a in Islam, it's say Azrael in Kapukalki or Alpha Seed in the Ramach, they only have a duo skill, and they are heavy infantry, like S5 heavy infantry. And if you want to play them, because like it's not always like you don't always have to play like the most mean and lean profiles, like always the Mukhtar. There are enough like variables in Infinity that you can actually make other profiles work. It will just require a bit more work. But say if you just want to play, say Ramach and push out with the Alpha Seed, then the ability to tow a Rouhani Doctor to heal you up, or Lila Sharif Killer Hacker, or even I think he can link with the Flash Pulse the Forward Observer bot. So getting those guys with you are pretty okay. And like the only good thing about duo is the order efficiency. You don't have any bonuses, but you have order efficiency. So basically, for the active turn, you are taking the specialist with you, if you're not a specialist. And then I would really consider like coordinating suppression on the duo guys and some other guys, like your lieutenant, your deployment zone, because you gain absolutely no benefits for the duo in the enemy turn. So basically my idea for a duo would be to go out, click the thing, go out, kill some stuff, go out, click the thing, then park your facade in like good ranges, park your like other specialists overlooking his 6, like so his back, like so he looks like for like the paratroopers that are engaging there. And then coordinate him, this guy, and say your lieutenant and some other guy looking at the back into suppression. And done. That's the duo. You don't ever have to use this duo anymore this game.
So I think similarly to what Perzan is saying, like the duo doesn't necessarily bring any extra combat capability per se, but it's a really good excuse to link, a decent active or reactive presence with a specialist or something like that, and it just creates quite a lot of order efficiency. So if a heavy infantry is dragging around its own doctor, that's far more efficient than you not having the doctor there and then having to spend orders later or something like that.
Yeah, like there are some duos that are good, and there are some duos that are like, say, if you have like there are some new duos, say, of a cross combat specialist and close combat specialist. So say Kendrat and the Krakot. Yeah. Now there are some other added benefits to having a duo, and especially on those guys that are impetus, because then you get the benefit of cover. So let's say an Asawira, like running a Harris of Asawiras is always better than running a duo. But if you are down a member, you still want to keep the duo because they are still a link team and they are still not impetus. So they are still getting the cover bonuses. And similarly on like those Krakot and Kendrat, you can move out and keep them in the duo, keep the cover bonuses. And on close combat specialists, especially keeping your taking your other guy with you so you can have the burst bonus is quite alright, but that's pretty niche.
Yeah. That's a really interesting point though, because sometimes you might want to duo just to get rid of like Frenzy or Impetuous or something. Yeah.
Yes, but I think like the biggest part of the duo is like a good fighter and a specialist. Which begs the question, why not have a good fighter who is a specialist, like no ranger in the first place? Yeah, it's like nobody ever played him, so he deserved it. Okay, so these are some... Yeah. Yes? You were trying to say something, Cody? Okay. Yeah, so I think like this is like the basics of the link teams, like deploying, like just to sum it up, like deploying defensively, like pick a spot without saturation. That's the first step. Then pick a spot in favorable range bands, and like if you have two big guns, I would hesitate deploying them both to ARO. Because it's very hard to actually ensure that the opponent will be engaging them both. And if you are just exposing them at, then just differentiate the angles that the enemy has to take, because a Haidao can just close the table from this distance, and the Shang-Chi can close this line, and that's enough. He doesn't need to like overlook this distance too, and this makes them like more like order inefficient for your opponent to remove them. Because once the Haidao dies, of course they have the full table, but in order to engage the other scary guy, they have to go all the way up to here, or engage him like in his good range. Yeah, another thing was to if you are attacking with the link, null deploy. So deploy without line of fire to everything if you can, and possibly like not in a line for one chain rifle. Remember, there are factions that have infiltrating mine layers, Shazvasti. And yeah, and when attacking with a link, I would say like don't always go completely blind about retaining the 5-man bonus. Sometimes it's enough to have just an active high burst gun, and then not expose your ARO presence on the active turn.
Yeah, and maybe some advices on building league team, choosing right guys for it.
Yeah, so you want to basically a link team is an order battery for the most part. So like putting the cheap guys in the link as a filler is always good, because for a small amount of points, it just greatly improves the actual guns that are exposed or like attacking, and keeps at the same time it also keeps the cheap guys safe because of 6 cents and +1 burst, and the bonuses for the link. But you don't want to expose them. Like you want to guard like close lanes, like backside.
But it also helps to keep the expensive guys safe as well,
yes?
right? Because they can cover the back of the expensive guys.
Yes, like I would say like this is like the most important in deployment, both in the reactive turn and at the end of the active turn. You don't want all your link to be looking forward. You want to have some like those filler guys. They need to be in a safe position, like behind cover, but looking to your 6. And at the sides, like corners, doors and corners.
Is it better to include two special weapons, like some defensive, like sniper rifle, and offensive, like a heavy machine gun, or is it better to stick with only one weapon?
It depends. It depends. Like if you have a fire team that is purely defensive, and I would consider this fire team purely defensive. Like this Shang-Chi is there, which is very good profile, this Shang-Chi. But it can do the same stuff on their own, it doesn't need the full link team with them. On the other hand, the hideout is greatly helped in the reactive turn by having the link. But if you just had like 4th Zamshi, you could then just nearby, then you could like deploy them all with the Shang-Chi as the 5-man link, and then maybe get this Shang-Chi and maybe a paramedic, or maybe just on his own and just push, and then reform the link with the 5th guy.
I think there is a second answer to that question as well. So one answer is that you can keep your link purely defensive or offensive, and you don't need to mix. But I didn't play link teams for a long time, but one of the things I used to do is that if you've got a sectoral where you've got decent wildcards and decent link filler, such as Fusiliers in Pano and stuff that are actually really decent, you can include 6 members, right? Well, you can't put 6 members in the fire team, but you can have 6 potential troops, one of which could be an ARO troop, and then once they die, you make it into an active turn link with the 6th member replacing the dead 5th member, and then you start pushing up, which is something that I've tried before. I wouldn't recommend it as a generic strategy, but I think if the dudes that you can put in the link are really effective and you're going to take them anyway, it might be worth thinking about.
Yeah, just like one observation, whenever I play against like offensive 5-man cores that are not full heavy infantry, I am very glad when the opponent approaches my half of the table with all of them, because this makes it much easier to destroy them.
Yeah, I think link teams can be quite soft to skirmishers and templates and all sorts of things.
Yeah, especially like those link teams with just those amazing cheap fillers.
Right.
Because like one Dailami, one like airborne trooper that is like getting here and not overlooked by anybody. Like if he enters here and everybody is looking forward, then he can just safely like remove this guy, and then your link team is like not the link team. Like this guy is still pretty amazing. But this allows you to engage this guy from long range with your link team or your active piece without fearing of the link team bonuses. And it also depletes the older battery of the guy. I always try to go for the soft underbelly if I can.